Hi everyone, welcome to Alex on Story. My name is Alex. This video is all about animation workflow, specifically straight ahead. There are three main workflows in computer animation: pose to pose, straight ahead, and layered. This is the second video in a three-part series, with each video looking at one of the workflows. If you have not seen the first video, pose to pose, go check that out. Straight ahead animation is a way of blocking out your scene. You start at the beginning and work linearly to the end. The power of straight ahead animation is the blocking speed, which de-emphasizes clarity of posing for how something is moving. The goal is fluidity of movement. By working linearly, there's an element of the unknown, of discovery. With that, a freshness that is hard to match with any other workflow. Straight ahead animation works best with action scenes, because the focus is on the whole and not the detail. This allows itself to be open to happy accidents more so than the other two workflows. Let's have a look at the strength of each workflow. Pose-to-pose strength is planning of the idea through posing. The strength of straight ahead is the blocking speed, which flows you forward through your shot, discovering new opportunities along the way. Layered is the newest of the workflows and is capable of achieving the highest levels of realism. Animation generally has two kinds of shots: an acting and performance shot and an action shot. Here's a diagram of where I feel the three workflows land. Pose-to-pose and layered workflows generally are more for acting shots. Straight-ahead animation is generally for more action shots because you're focused on describing movement more so than the detail of the idea. There are many styles and industries of animation. You have TV animation, film animation, games, commercials. You even have other tasks like layout, and we all use one of these three workflows: pose-to-pose, straight-ahead, or layered. You can see for TV animation, predominantly the workflow is pose-to-pose. The reason for that is the amount of time given to create that work is a lot less, so we have to get to the idea quicker, and pose-to-pose is the best method for that. When you step over to film animation, your quota goes down, so you have more time to complete your work. All three animation workflows are used more evenly to achieve the desired look. I found when stepping into layout, straight-ahead animation is much more dominant, because speed of describing the idea is more important than quality. Although I block my characters when doing layout in straight-ahead fashion, when I'm doing my cameras for layout, it's still predominantly pose-to-pose. So even in the same task of layout, I'll do different workflows for different areas of my job. Let's jump into Blender now and block out a straight-ahead animation scene together. If you like this content, make sure you go to the bottom of my website and sign up to my newsletter. Let's have a look at the scene together. I have the sprite character loaded in. I also have an environment that I got from Sketchfab. Nice simple environment. Let's set up the scene together, and then I'll go over the steps for this workflow. Let's come on up here to animation. Here in the dope sheet, I can hit Control Tab, takes us to the graph editor. I can hit N, and the options goes away for the graph editor. Let's pull our timeline up. So we have access to our keys, and I pull that down. Here on the right side, I do the viewport material shading. Perfect. And I like to turn these off. Those are just information to do with navigating in your scene. So now I have the picture as clean as possible. Here on the left side is where I do most of my work, so I'm going to turn everything on. One important one to turn on is this text info. And when you play your animation, it lets you know the frame range. Very important that we're seeing a 24 frame animation. I see I have a couple keys in my timeline, so I'm just going to select A, then over here select A again, X, and just delete those keys. For now, the timeline's 250 frames. I'm just going to shorten it to 100, just so it's a little shorter, and if we need more time, we'll add more time later. Let's talk now about the steps I'll do in the straight ahead workflow video. For all three workflows, step one is always the idea. The idea either comes from an audio, or from the storyboards, or from your imagination. No matter what the idea is, it's important to just think about it and think of different variations on that idea. After that, the next step is blocking. Blocking to me is the most important step in any of the workflows because you do the broadest amount of work in the shortest amount of time. What sets the straight ahead workflow apart from the other two workflows is you want to start from the beginning and work your way to the end in one pass. That linear workflow is unique to straight ahead. When working on a first pass, you want to keep things very rough. rougher than you would in a blocking pass for a pose-to-pose workflow. When doing straight ahead, it helps to keep the timing and movement even. So 4 frames, 8 frames, or 12 frames. That even timing allows you to focus more on spacing and the movement on screen. After that, you move on to your third pass where you add detail and clean up any issues. So let's talk about the idea for the shot. I think the environment is great, and the idea came out of the relationship of our sprite character and the environment. Once I loaded the environment and I saw the scale relationship, all I did is explore the environment, seeing what ideas this little character can do. After moving the camera around for maybe a minute or two, I landed on a framing that to me had some appeal. Just something like this. And I could imagine the blue sky and lots of silhouettes and even the size relationship, him being small, and then I could imagine him running towards camera and getting larger as well. So roughly this is going to be the camera we're going to have, the angle. And then the next thing I thought about is what action our character can take within this frame. And I came up with the idea of he jumps out of the bushes, falls, and lands somewhere around here. And as he's falling, he's dropping some blueberries. And then he quickly gets up, picks them up, and runs out of scene. So that's the idea I have for this shot with this character in this environment. So let's create our camera. Shift-A. We're going to come to camera and camera. Here in my right panel, I'm going to hit 0 on our numpad. I'm just going to frame in. For this one scene, the aspect ratio is different than what it should be, 1920 by 1080. One other thing I like to do is coming over here to camera properties under viewport display, this passport out, just put that to 0.99. What that allows you to do is really darken the area outside your field of view, but still see aspects of the set. Last thing I want to do when working with the camera is come up to view and camera to view. Now I can frame freely in this window. Awesome. I can select our character here, hit F or period numpad, and you can frame into your character. I'm using a 50mm lens. That's the standard in Blender. And I think that actually might work nicely here. So all I'm going to do is frame my character now. Awesome. Something like this. The set already informs me that a human lives here. And he is trespassing, in my mind, on this land. And maybe what's chasing him is either a dog, that would be good, or in my mind, what's simpler, just to get this shot done, is maybe a crow is chasing him. So some predator is chasing him off this land. And I'm just playing with angle, seeing what I think looks good before I commit to something. I kind of like the fact that the road here feels like it's going down and I just can't see past this little hill here as opposed to going up. But I do want to see part of this. He's going to land and just land around here. Cool. So for now, I'm just going to pick this framing. I can always make adjustments after. Once I'm happy with the framing, I'm going to come back to our properties, our options, and turn off camera to view. Now I can't accidentally knock the camera and lose my framing, but I can go back with 0 numpad. There's one other thing I want to do. Let's take a look quickly at the character rig and just have it set up the way we want. I'm going to select the character, Control Tab, so I get in pose mode, hit N, and let's go to the cloud rig. If you're working with any of the Blender character rigs, it's easiest if you drag and drop the file into your scene. That'll just load all the scripts and you should have the options that you're seeing here. So give that a try. Let's go to layers and I'm going to turn on FK. I'm also going to turn on fingers. I'm going to go back to settings and under FK IK switch, I just want my arms to be in FK. So I'm going to select to verify one of the FK controls and move it up. You can see nothing happens. And now I'm going to slide these two. So now my arms are in FK. Awesome. So here's the action I'm thinking that's going to take place. Our character jumps into frame, hits the ground, comes back up, hits the ground again, and then has the recovery somewhere around here. He gets up and runs off screen. Along the way, he's going to lose some blueberries. And while he's running out of frame, I think just to add to the complexity, he'll run and try to pick up those blueberries. I'm going to divide the blocking of the scene into two. They're both still going to be straight ahead workflows, except the way in which I work, the controls I use are going to be different. In the first part of this scene where he's coming into the frame, bouncing and falling and then landing, that first part, I'm going to use the control of the move all. The move all is this one control here by his feet, and it moves everything in the rig. So I'm going to use the move all because all I have to do is move one control, and I get to move very quickly through my scene. I get to describe the idea and the movement very fast without committing quality. Once he gets up on his feet, I'm going to leave that move all control, and I'm going to switch then to animating and blocking the 2 feet IK controls and his COG. The COG is that center of gravity control somewhere around his hips. So I'm going to now then animate 3 controls moving through space. The reason why I do the switch at that point is because he's on his feet. And if I were to then still continue with the move all control, the one that moves everything, when I want to then add detail later on, I'm going to have a hard time animating his feet because they're going to be slipping. By leaving that move all control there and then switching the controls I use to the feet and the COG, when I then add in detail, the feet will remain planted as I key them. So the workflow is going to be the same, straight ahead all the way through, but the controls I use are going to be different based off how his body's positioned. So just keep that in mind. And the whole blocking pass for me, a good goal to aim for, is roughly about 10 minutes. I should describe everything that needs to happen in 10 minutes. And if I do that, and if I like it, that's great. But if I don't like it, I've only spent 10 minutes. So the power of straight ahead is how quickly you can sell the idea. That's what I like about this workflow. So let's jump in and start blocking our character. All right, I'm going to select the control of our character, Control Tab, so we're in pose mode. And here's that move all I was talking about. We have 2 controls, 2 move alls, a sub and the main one. It's nice when a rig has multiple controls for the same action. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this sub move all control, bring my camera down so I can see roughly the flatness of those 2 controls. There we go, so it's thin. And I'm going to pull this one control down roughly until that line is in line with his hips. And now I'm going to animate this control. And this control is in the center of his body now. So when I'm bouncing him around and turning him, it still looks like he's rotating from the center of his body. So I like that. And that's the only control I'm going to use for this blocking pass for the first half of this action until he gets on his feet, and then he's going to run out. Let's go to frame 1. And let's start right at the beginning and getting our character into the scene, into the shot. Cool. So all I'm worried about is where the character is on screen. So at the beginning, he's coming out of the bushes, somewhere over here. And the pose to me at this point doesn't really matter either. Again, it's not about detail yet. So I'm going to key that. And remember, it helps you if you keep your timing even. So here's the timing. I'm on frame 1. I'm going to go 8 frames later to frame 9. And I'm going to just key the next position in space that I think looks good. So here's our character. He comes into frame and he's maybe turning to camera a little bit. And there he goes. Somewhere right there. Awesome. Insert a key. I'm going to go 8 frames again. And where is he going to be next? Well, to me, he's going to be landing. And all I'm doing is trying to move quickly and just get him through screen space in what I think is an entertaining way. Perfect. Insert a key. 8 frames more. insert a key, 8 frames. Awesome. And now he's landing on the ground. He's going to do a roll. Good. And maybe last 8 frames here. And he ends on 49. Cool. So you can see how rough that idea is. And then he lands over here somewhere. Perfect. Awesome. So let's just have a look at this first part of the blocking. And I'm just going to make this 55 frames. And we're going to play what we have. Cool. So all we're trying to do now is sell the idea. I'm going to refine this a little bit, and then I'll go back and work on the second half. Cool. So the first part I can tell is the amount of movement I'm traveling here is far too great, and then everything slows down. So all I have to do, now that my timing is even, I don't have to think about that. All I'm thinking about is the spacing. How much am I moving in screen space over those 8 frames? And if I'm moving very little, then it's a slower action. If I'm moving a lot, my spacing is greater over that same amount of time. So that's why I like to keep my timing even, and I can increase or decrease the spacing, the amount of movement I'm moving. I find that to be very easy to work and adjust. So all I'm doing is pulling this back. Perfect, updating that key. I'm going to pull this pose back a little bit, so I have more direction, more speed coming out of there. To me, this is going to be the money area here, where he realizes off that bounce, he's dropped a couple blueberries, and then in the air, I'm going to have him maybe try to catch 1 or 2. So when I go to my second pass, most likely I'll add another 4 frames in here. But for now, I'll keep it the same. Cool. Already adjusting that first part is good. Cool, and then my movement forward dies right here. So what I'm going to do is just pull him back a little bit. Not much. Good. Awesome. And I can see my frame rate is 18 frames a second. I'm going to try to see if I can get it to, there we go, just so I can see it more accurately. Boom. Cool. So I'm liking that. And you know, when I go to add the detail, he's going to really roll nicely and aggressively and even sharper at the end there. But so far I'm liking it. So let's keep moving. So he's going to land. And now this landing pose is important to me. So I'm going to spend 30 seconds crafting a very simple pose so that I can get up and then run out of frame. So he's just landed. So I'm just going to build a very generic pose. So I'm going to leave this move all now. This is the only control we've animated. I'm going to hit A, select all, deselect those 2 controls, the 2 move alls. I'm just going to hit I, insert a key. And somewhere around here, just a little before, I'm going to hit I again, just preserving this default pose. I know I'm going to change that pose. That's more of a detail. That's going to be the next pass. But in my first blocking pass, this landing pose, whatever that is, just even selling that idea is important to me. So I'm going to spend a minute just crafting this one pose here. So his feet are crashing currently. Let's just pull them up. Cool, nice and loose. And typically for an action shot, because there's so many options really that you can do and so much physical movement that's happening, keeping it rough just the way we do now or the way I'm doing it, I think is the best use of your time. Cool. I'm going to come on over here to my rig properties, and under viewport display, I'm going to turn off this in front. Perfect. So what that does is now I can hit Alt Z and turn on and off the in front portion. Just less annoying. So even though I went at the beginning, I went from IK to FK, the hands. IK just means inverse kinematics, and that is when I put the control somewhere. No matter what the body does, the hand stays there. FK follows, it's a chain, so FK just follows everything else. So if I move the chest, the hand moves. I prefer FK, and when you're on the ground, it would be nice to be IK. I don't switch there though. I just, especially on a pose that's this far away from the camera, I'll just keep it in FK, make some small pose adjustments, and then just get him up. And so, yes, you could switch here, or you could do what I'm doing and just pose him and just essentially fake it that he's pushing off the ground or whatever it's going to be. Cool. So just posing it very roughly. Awesome. And maybe this one hand, it would be nice if I saw it over here, like it just went forward a little. So we'll see if we can get that with his big head. I really like when rigs like this, and most rigs, you can pull that shoulder. And because it's hidden on the back side of his body from this camera angle, no one's going to know, but you can start crafting your ideas easier. Awesome. And so I can start to see that hand there, and I like that. Cool. That's all I'm interested in. Perfect. I can see the hand. I think that looks better. Awesome. So there's my pose. I'm going to hit A, deselect these. I just don't want to key them. And there we go. So let's play what we have. And then he lands in that pose. Okay, so now I can start blocking the next part of my idea using different controls. So just like I said at the beginning, I'm going to leave this one move all control, and then I'll start to animate just those three, the 2 feet controls and the COG. And so our character's just landed. I'm going to give 8 frames just to be on the ground. So let's go to 57. 8 frames, there we go. Let's give ourselves more time. And so he's just landed. It's been a big fall, bang, bang, bang. He's landed. He's going to be there just a third of a second, and then he's going to get up. And I'm just thinking now, does he look back as he's getting up? Does he not care about the predator that's coming to get him? Or does he look towards the blueberries, which I'll have maybe a blueberry or 2 landing in the foreground? I'm just thinking about where his focus is going to be. And I don't know the answer yet, but I think what I'll do is have it more on the predator. I might switch my blocking. So before this, you can see on my graph editor, it was always 8 frames, the timing between the keys. And then here, it got down to 4. I mean, that was just the body pose, but it's been 8 frames. So what I'm going to do now is a combination of 8 frames and 4 frames. 4 when I think I need more detail, and 8 frames when I just want to pump through my blocking quicker. And I'm going to start with the head control here. And he's going to look back from where he came from. So he's just going to look back as he's getting up. Just very roughly posing that in. Cool, so we have this pose here where we have our hold, and the very next pose, he's looking up 4 frames later. Let's go 4 frames again and just continue with the posing, with the idea. Again, as he's getting up, I still want him to look in that direction where the threat's coming. And at the same time, we have this move all control that has a weird rotation value. That's how we got into that position. We came in the frame and rolled and tumbled, and we landed. And we landed in a funky axis, in a weird rotation. So over the speed of him getting up, I'm going to also reset the value of the control. So then when I then switch to animating his feet control in COG, that center of gravity, running him out of frame, that move all is flat, and it's gonna make animating those other three controls easier. So when I do something like this, I'll usually do it over a quick move, and this is a great spot to do it. But all I'm gonna do is reset the rotation values by hitting Alt-R. I'm gonna reset the values of the feet control. Here we go. I'm gonna select that, select this, Alt-R, Alt-G, perfect. I'm also going to reset my COG. Perfect, that's center of gravity. Awesome. So I'm getting myself ready for the run. I'm just going to plop him up here. He looks a little strange. I'm not worried about that. I'm just setting myself up for what's to come. Okay. Cool, and I'm getting some funky gimbal action. So here's what I can do to fix that. I just did reset the values, and that didn't work. He must have had many rotations, and that just sets him back. So here's what we can do. Delete this. And what I'm going to do is come over here at N, and here's the rotation values. I reset this this rotation X, which has 771 degrees of rotation. I'm going to leave that. I'm just going to reset those other two back to 0. Perfect. And then this one, the closest full number is 720. And that should do it. Cool. Let's pull that character back up, something like this. Awesome. Let's test to see if that works better, and it does. And you can't even tell. And I'm going to have a little bit of trouble when I go to adding detail or just cleaning the action up over these 4 to 8 frames, but I already know I can work with that. So what I did there, instead of resetting the whole rotation, I just did 2 axes and then left that other axis with its value. So I didn't reset that. So that's why it's not acting up anymore. Okay, let's clean this pose and let's start running him out of scene. Cool, and I'm going to reset basically the whole body now. I'm going to select everything, minus those controls I already worked on, and Alt-R, Alt-G, perfect. Insert a key. Control-C, Control-V, perfect. And you can see you can't really tell that I've reset the value over this amount of movement. Cool. So he's coming up. And now all I'm trying to do is sell the idea that maybe he's a little hurt, scared, and wants his blueberries back. So all of that is going through my mind. So I'm just going to pose him very quickly into what I think might just capture that. Still looking this way to where the danger is coming from. So even in straight ahead workflow like this, some poses are really important. And I think this one is. So I'll spend a little more time as long as it's helping to sell my idea. Awesome. He just got up. And maybe I spend an extra 4 frames really just selling that, and then our character is going to take off. So everything's selected, insert key, 4 frames later. And so I'm having a look at the blocking, and I'm getting an idea that I'll keep my animation snappier. And so he'll look at where the threat's coming from, get up. I'm going to have him in this pose be lower. And then for this pose, he'll be in the air and he sees the prey coming. So that's what I'm going to do. So in this pose, I'm going to have him still bent over quite a bit. And then in this one, this is where I'm gonna just have them really pop up. So what I'm gonna do is reset the values. Just makes it easier sometimes by doing that. I'm gonna grab that center of gravity control, that COG, and those 2 feet controls, and he's just gonna go up. Maybe he leans back, he sees the prey coming. And this pose can be comedic. Cool. Just enough to sell the idea, if that's working. So you saw what I did before is I played the animation and it just wasn't playing for me. And then instead of continuing on, I address what I feel is not working. Cool. So here we're going to pop up. Bam. Nice big hold in the air. 69. 6 frames. Let's do, I think 8 frames is too much. Let's go for 4 frames for now. And let's just pull them up a little bit. And maybe elongate his pose a little bit. Insert a key. And we're going to come down and now we're ready to start running. So let's play what we have, see if that idea is working. Cool. I think it is working. And when I go to clean up the scene, what I'm going to do is this portion here, we have 4 frames and 4 frames. I'm just going to make that snappier. So it's going to be very snappy and then bop, he's just all of a sudden in this pose. Cool, so we got that pose. And now we're going to start the run. So I'm going to be very rough about it, see if the idea is working, and then we'll add the detail. So let's go 4 frames. Let's just get him back on the ground. And then we'll start running him. So I'm going to select the feet and the COG, that center of gravity control. Just rotate him a little. He's still facing the bad guy a little bit here. Awesome, so let's go 8 frames now, and we'll block out the scene much rougher. So I'm going to select his feet control, the 2 foot controls, and that COG control, that center of gravity, and we'll start moving him forward through space. Can come running forward. Maybe he'll pick up a blueberry somewhere. His attention now will no longer be on whatever is going to chase him, but he'll start to focus on the blueberries. Cool. So still with those 3 controls, the 2 feet controls and the COG control, and we're just moving our character through space. So he's landing, he's running, 8 frames. 8 frames. Maybe he picks up another blueberry somewhere around here. And I want him to go pretty quick. He's pushing. He's trying to save his food that he captured while also escaping from the predator. I'm also going to probably add a camera move back as well. Just track him back with his action a little. But let's keep that for now. Awesome, so 113. Let's just give it a couple more frames. Let's see what we have. That's cool. So here we're starting to sell the idea of the whole shot. We spent maybe 90 seconds, 2 minutes describing the movement of the fall, the bouncing in, and then we spent maybe a minute on the pose on the ground, on the contact. And then we played it back, made some adjustments. And then here with just the 2 feet controls and the COG control, that center of gravity, we're moving him, the character, through space. And now we get to really make some big decisions. Overall, I'm liking the speed that he's running. It's quick, it's speedy, and I like that. I like the fact that he zigzags a little bit, And so while he's doing that, he's going to be picking up 1 or 2 blueberries, which is very cool. Bang, bang. So I'm liking it. At this point, I'm happy with the blocking. I'm going to refine parts of it a little bit, so we'll do that together. But I'm also going to add a camera move. I'm going to increase some of the storytelling elements a little bit. Mainly that one area where he lands and he gets up and he has that reaction. It's slightly being blocked by the tree in the car there. So I'll work on that. Refine some small things just in the movement, and then we can go and start doing our second pass. Just going to go back to frame 1 and pull the camera. And so we're going to create a very simple tracking shot, screen right. Hit A to select all, and V, and go to vector. Cool, very simple camera move. And it's actually going to end a little later, and it can be a little bigger, the move. Cool. And then it's gonna have an ease, and then it's gonna blend into the move back. So we'll do that after, but maybe I'll make it end just a few frames after, and then around here, just as he finishes the landing pose, I'll start my settle. And as he starts to run forward, maybe frame 85, that's when the camera move is going to start going backwards. So I'm going to go diagonally and pull up a little. Cool. I'm going to make this vector, and this will be automatic clamped. Cool. I'm going to go back to our character and just add that last pose in here. So frame 13, and to get him out, it'll be frame 121. Cool. Selecting those 3 controls again, and just pulling them out. And frame 21 is going to be the end of the shot. I decided 121. Perfect. Let's go back to our camera. And so now I know frame 121 is going to be the end. I'm going to move it. Awesome. Let's play what we have. This is now the blocking pass. So I'm selling the idea. I'm also selling the movement of the camera. And I'm trying to sell the urgency of the shot. I have the character coming in a fun way. The landing, a little bit of a beat, the reaction, and I'm going to make that more explosive. And then a quick exit. Awesome. So this is a good blocking pass. So you saw the steps. We did the beginning, where their character bounces in a fun way. We have the landing and a little bit of a hold, the reaction, which is quick, and then the run out. So this is a good blocking pass. We also added our camera movement, so we know it's all starting to work together. And it didn't take that long. So that's the benefit of a straight ahead workflow, is you get to describe your idea and you get to do it very quickly. Then if you like it, you add the detail. So if you got to a stage like this, nice job. And if you've never worked in this fashion and you're giving it a try, also good for you. Okay, I'm going to save it. And then we'll go ahead and start adding poses, especially at the beginning, and start describing some of the detail within the performance and doing it through posing. So we have everything, we have the timing. We're going to tighten some of the things up, but also add storytelling poses now. So that's what we'll do together. Okay, let's go back to the beginning, and he's off screen, so I can't see him. So let's start with frame 9. And all we're going to do is try to sell the idea. And we should actually start adding some of our blueberry props. So let's do that now, actually. Let's go Shift A, Mesh, And we'll add 3 spheres. These are going to be temp, and then if I like the idea, then either I'll model something or I'll just download a Blueberry asset. Cool, so all we're looking for now is that scale relationship. Let's add a material, new. Cool, awesome, so here's our Blueberry, one of them, and I'm just gonna tuck it into his arm a little bit, and then I'm gonna pose him around these blueberries. Shift D. And for now, I'm not going to add any rigs to them. I'm just going to animate the geometry and just pose them across time. And when I like it, and I bring in the right asset, I'll do some constraining and just make my life easier then. Cool. So I have the blueberries. And actually, let's go ahead and just pose them overall at the different stages. Insert a key. Frame 1. And just around here on the impact pose is when they'll start flying away. Bam. And then he's going to try to save one, and he will end up saving one. Frame 17, frame 25. Awesome. So maybe this big one escapes him a little bit. Clearly, it's in its own space. This other one maybe is just in front of him. Frame 33. This little one, now he's caught, and it's with him. Cool. And then this one's going to have the most interesting timing of the 3. It's still kind of doing its thing, up in the air climbing. 33, 41. It starts dropping. I added a little bounce here, and I'm just going to still block out the scene here as the blueberry, as he goes by the blueberry. I'm just going to have it being picked up. Just like this, nothing too precious. Cool, let's work on the other 2 blueberries. So we can see. Yeah, I'm liking this. And now, once I just roughly block in the other 2 blueberries, I'm going to really work on the timing before really adding in any of the poses. After that initial first bump on the ground, and then he goes back up, I'm going to add 4 to 8 more frames. He's going to try to pick at that one blueberry as then he falls, and then that whole roll, and then the face plant forward. That's going to be a lot quicker. So again, all I have to do with the timing, because it's even, I can just go cut 2 frames in, cut 4 frames in, and I just quicken up the speed of everything. So that's one of the nice things about working even in a straight ahead, is the timing's all the same, but the spacing's different, and then I can keep the spacing the same and then work on the timing. Just simply by adding more time, more keyframes in between, or shortening the amount of time, which speeds up or slows down my action. This is, to me, probably the coolest part of the shot. If I can sell the idea that he's landed, the blueberries left him, but he's just trying to get one back before he falls down again, I think that'll be really cool. Cool, let's look at this blueberry here. this other one, right? Oh, geez. This one right there. And our character then runs this way. So it kind of tells us the direction or the placement we need that blueberry to be. And I want it on this side of him now. Cool. So that's the placement our blueberry needs to be. Cool. So we have our straight line. Maybe around frame 45, this one blueberry lands right there. Cool. And now somewhere around here, I can pull and then we can just add a little bit of a bounce, a secondary bounce after 41. Maybe we'll just say 49, insert a key somewhere in the middle. We'll just pull that up a little. Vector, vector. Awesome. I hope this helps show you still what we can do in the blocking stage. I still haven't committed to any detail really at this point. It's just, am I selling the idea? And already I'm even thinking about adding in that bird or that cat or something, just to then continue with that story, selling this idea for the shot, and then adding the detail for the sprite. So I might do that. Cool. So I've gone ahead and added the bird just to see if the idea of the predator is working. And I feel like it is working. There's some time where our sprite character reacts. That whole area where he lands and stops and then looks and then reacts, I think can be a little punchier, a little quicker. So, but that's going to come now. But this is it. This is now the blocking pass. I've added all the elements that I want for the story, and it's working. The idea is working. The character, how he's moving, how he's reacting, and the tempo, I think is all working. The blueberry idea is working, that he tries to, that he drops him, and then the idea that he's gonna try to catch him, I'll do that in the posing, but those are working. And then the predator, the bird, is working as well. So this is now the blocking pass. If we were working in a studio, this is what I would show. Whether it's the supervisor or the director, this is a great place to be. Awesome. Let's go ahead and start doing our second pass together. And what I'm going to do is go pose by pose and start refining the pose. In most cases, it's just T-pose. So it's just even adding a pose. And the easiest part's going to be that beginning part, because all we did is animated that move control. And so adding additional information on top of that is going to be easy. But if you've gotten to this point, really good job. It's a great place to be, and that means you've communicated your idea successfully. Now we just have to refine it and add more entertainment value. Okay, let's do that together. Cool, so let's go back right to the beginning. And so he's in the bush off screen. I'm actually going to go one frame over just so we can start identifying this pose. And the reason I added the blueberries is now I can actually wrap our character's arms around something. Whereas before, without the blueberries, without those objects, I think it would have looked a little weird. So now I can more accurately describe the pose. Cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and just break up that posing a little bit. Add some silhouettes. And keep it simple for the most part. Just thinking about where the character's eye line is. If it's at this point, is it down here where he knows he's going to land? Or is it on his blueberries? I feel like it wouldn't be on what he's holding. It would be where he's going towards. So what I'm going to do is rotate that head a little bit and just help us know that he's looking more in front of him. Cool. Awesome. Let's start wrapping our arms around these blueberries. And, I might change the position of the small one up, maybe up there a little bit, but I'm also going to really pull the shoulder, which is being hidden by the blueberry. I'm really going to pull it off the body and try to sell that this arm is coming across and just touching the one blueberry a little bit. Awesome. There's our first updated pose. I'm going to deselect those two main move all controls and just keep all the body controls. And you can see, because we hadn't keyed anything, it's just blending back into that default T pose as we get here to frame 49. So we're just going to be mindful of that. So frame 9 to frame 17, that's our contact pose. So I'm just going to key that just so I know where I am. And maybe around frame 15, I'm going to really tuck the body so that he protects himself on the fall, so he doesn't just hit himself on the head. It's more of a roll, maybe more the back of the head. But I like the movement of this. So I'm going to also now key frame 15. And what I'm doing by keying that pose at that time is just preserving that idea. I'll animate the legs back. I'll pose the legs back, so now there's drag on the legs. But now I'm really speeding up this action here. And so I'm going to work on this pose, and then he's going to come out of that more open. So I'm also going to key that right now as well. Perfect. Bam. Awesome. So let's work on frame 17. And so for frame 17, I'm going to have those legs. The body was coming from a screen left direction, so they're going to be dragging it, even compressing into his body, and then they're coming the other way. So that's all I'm doing in the pose. Cool. Just getting the idea there. And then, again, once the posing idea after this works, then I can add the detail. I'm really going to try to get that head. And then I think when there's some other controls that control the shape of the top of his head of the mushroom, and I'll be able to sculpt better the contact pose on the ground. And all he's doing is compressing on this contact pose. I'm no longer worried about that the blueberries aren't perfectly in his hands, because I'll do that after. Cool, so I'm just adding poses in now that help the story further along. So after that contact pose, I like this, but I'm going to have the body just react, coming into a reversal of the C-curves, and just his hands going apart. And that's what made the blueberries fall. And then maybe 8 frames later will be the first time he's really trying to get that blueberry 1 and 2, and just before he contacts. So maybe frame 29. I'm going to hit A, select all, deselect those move controls, insert a key. Let's come back here and really try to sell that force, that hit on the ground. So I'm going to lay the legs down and the toes. Cool. Grab that chest control, rotate it back, and this way, nice. And then those hands, I'm going to reset them. So that shoulder, upper arm, elbow, come on, elbow and wrist. Just reset them, insert a key, and I'm going to rotate them the other way. Cool. And then for this one pose, I might also really exaggerate the hand position, the arm position on the back side. just to see the shape there. And then frame 29, I'm really going to have him reach forward. I want a nice gap still from the head here to the blueberry. That little gap there is very important. So yeah, that arm is very short. And so we're just going to have to elongate it and hopefully do it in such a way that we can't really tell that we're cheating. But I mean, I am already pushing it quite a bit, but maybe what I'll do is then really exaggerate the arm on this side, on the back side. Cool, so just selling that idea that he's really reaching and just trying to get a strong silhouette in all the body. Maybe stretching some of the other limbs will look good. I'll add a bend in that knee after, but for now, I'll keep going. Cool. Boom. And maybe frame 37, 8 frames later. So it went, and then it might be the other arm now that reaches for the blueberry. So let's rotate his COG, that center of gravity. We're going to reset the values here. And all his attention is on that blueberry. Legs also have drag on them now, so I'm posing them up above the body as he's starting to lean forward. Cool. Again, for now, I think it's in the secondary controls of the rig, the bending of the knee there when it's being stretched. So I'll add that after. Cool, so frame 41 is really the contact pose. And at speed, you can really see that one pose that's stretched. And I'll try to make it snappy, bang, and then maybe stretch out the other arm that he catches the blueberry with. And maybe even some animation, like he tapped the blueberry up and it just goes up a little bit more. I think that would be cool. Nice. I think overall it's playing. It becomes a little bit more, well, the detail just adds complexity to the animation. I know through the blocking pass, through the straight ahead pass that I did, that the idea is working. Now it's just adding detail. And at every level, it's just adding a little bit of detail at a time and not going too crazy at one time or in one spot. But this area is still very important, this one right here. So I'm still going to work on this spot right here. And then this spot's nice and quick. I love very quick action like that. It's easy to make work. So I'm still going to try to sell this blueberry idea. So he had the contact. I feel like he can go up more here. So I'm just going to select this body and we're going to work on this right here. I feel like this could be higher, G, nice. And it could even be a little kind of snappier. Bang. Good. And then frame 41, very important. Anytime you have a contact pose, it's important. And 41 is our contact pose. And then we really turn violently, which is okay. And then we're going into that pose that I crafted at the beginning. So it's just about working that out. So I'm going to hit A, select everything, deselect those two controls. I have a pose on 37, which I'm liking. I can make it stronger, but that'll come later. I'm going to keep frame 41. And so at this point, he has the blueberry, which is great. So I'm going to rotate his arm. I'm also going to rotate his body. He knows he has it, or he knows he has the blueberry, but he also is getting ready for the landing. Cool. And his head is so big that it does make it more difficult. But that's okay. I'm going to turn his head, and he's getting ready for that impact. And normally on a roll like this, what you would do is roll over your shoulder. So I would tuck that head in, and hopefully with his big head, that'll look good here as well. This one arm, which we don't see, which I'll pose, I'll try to sell the idea that he's cushioning his fall by just putting his arm on the ground. So you can see it just squeaking in the frame there. Bam. Cool. I'm not worried about this weird big, roll. I can make that work. So it's very quick from frame 41 to frame 49, 8 frames. He's doing a full rotation. Almost 360, about 360. And so in 8 frames, I'm going to go halfway in the middle, frame 45, and think about that pose. So I'm going to key everything. And what I'm looking at now is the spacing of where the head is. The head's the biggest object now. It's that red thing right here, that mushroom. And so it's over here on screen. 4 frames later, where is it going to be? So I'm going to put my finger. You can't see that I'm putting my finger on the screen, but I am. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the mushroom, the red portion, barely moved any little bit, screen right. And now let's go 4 more frames. I'm going to put my finger right on his head. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the first 4 frames after the impact, his physical, well, I shouldn't say physical, but his head, when it comes to the screen space, didn't move pretty much anything screen right. Then the next 4 frames after the impact, he moves quite a bit. So that's what's going to inform me on what I have to do. So all I have to do is grab that COG and physically pull him screen right. That's how easy that's going to be. And rotate him. I'm not worried about the feet or anything. It's just about that big mass. Can I get it to look good? And already it's going to be better. So I'm going to do the same thing. Here's frame 41. I'm going to put my finger right on his head. 4 frames later. Yes, he did go forward. Great. Update my position. 4 frames later, still moving forward. So the spacing now is more even. That's important. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is look at the posing of this one frame, frame 45. It doesn't have to be too nice because the action's moving so quick. So what I'm going to try to do is select my arm controls. Here's the shoulder, upper arm, elbow, and wrist. Make sure everything's keyed. Control C on frame 41, all those keys. Go to frame 45, and I'm just going to paste. Cool. And when I refine the pose again, all I'm going to do is paste it. And that just saves time. It keeps things more consistent as well, which is great. I'm going to just bring back the shoulder where it should be by default. I'm just going to make small adjustments here. And I'm going to key everything minus those 2 move alls. Cool. And you can see before I posed his hand at frame 49 out, that's no longer needed. So I'm just going to copy and paste those arm controls that sell the idea that he's holding the blueberry. spaced it here. He's still holding, and now he's kind of let go. Bam. Cool? And so one piece at a time, it's almost like a puzzle. You just problem solve one portion, and then once you solve that portion, it gives you the answer somewhere else. Cool. I'm going to go frame 41 to 45, right in between frame 43. And I'm going to look at the spacing there as well. Cool. And now I'm going to start to care about not crashing in the ground. This one pose is very important. It's the one that really crashes in the ground. And it looks a little silly the way I'm doing it, but I'll adjust it. But at speed, it doesn't make much of a difference. Bam, bam. Awesome. So the idea of him trying to catch that blueberry is starting to read. All I have to do is increase my posing strength, the clarity of the pose, and then the snappiness, the timing, bang, bang, and then the reaction of the blueberry. And I think if I can do those three things, that idea of him trying to save that last blueberry and catch it, I think is going to work really well. What I'm going to do now is continue working on the scene. There's really not much any difference that I'm going to do. I'm going through all the poses, cleaning them up, making sure they're relating, and then tightening the timing. That's really the process the whole way through. And so I'm going to do that by myself and show you the end result. So you don't have to watch all of it. But hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you with the finished product. Here's the final result. I hope you enjoyed and got value from this tutorial. If you did, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications to make sure you get more helpful videos. Straight ahead animation is such a wonderful and fast way to block out a scene and try lots of ideas. If you're new to animation, give this workflow a try. If you struggled with straight ahead in the past, hopefully some of the things I've shared will help you out. Alright everyone, take care. Bye-bye.